news updates this month, including FabCon that Sven is going to cover. So for the Power BI, I'm first going to do the agenda. So I'm a BI consultant at Site Analytics, working together with Sven, and there's some of my contact details if you do need to get in touch or need more information. And then, like I said, there were a couple of announcements. I'm not going to go through the whole list. The link is above on the screen there. You can go to that, read through all the details. A couple of items were moved to general available. So that is some great news, especially Tyndall. And then it's just 4 points that stood out for me that I'm going to cover quickly in this month. So the first one is the performance analyzer that's available in the web. Previously, it was only available in Power BI desktop. This will allow you to actually reserve your report performance without needing to go back to the desktop. So it is a great time saver to do that. And then you can also copy your DAX queries, do some further analysis in DAX Studio to do some troubleshooting. So that would be highly beneficial to have this in the web. The second one, which I tested on some local models, is that you can refresh your data or your schema options. And the past updates, you can only do the whole schema and the data, and you had to wait a while for all the things to load, where only you wanted the schema to update only the data. So you've got 3 different options that you can play around with on your refresh. So that is quite a useful feature. And I think also that's a great time saver to have as options. Then the third one is an enhanced time intelligence. As we know that your calendar is about the most important part of your data model or semantic model, and they've enabled some additional time intelligence where you can define your actual new time calendars. You can create a shifted Gregorian, a 445 or 454 calendar, especially if you're on retail. There's also a link up there on the top where you can go into more detail to see how you actually apply it, but that is a very good use case for the time intelligence. And then the last one, and that's probably the biggest one for me this month, was the DAX UDFs, where you can find custom functions with parameters. You can call other UDFs with each other. You can create it in DAX view, DAX query view, or you can create it in Tyndall view. That will make your model more modular. It's going to make it more maintainable. Yeah, it's going to be a game changer. There's quite a lot of documentation. There's a couple links on there. The guys from Tabular Editor, they've got some great reading addition to the Microsoft documentation, where you can actually read up about it. And they also got like an hour course where you can deep dive in how the UDFs actually work. And then there's a public library, that daxlib.org, where you can actually see some functions already defined that you can download for your own use case. So I think this is going to be a game changer. And then, yeah, a lot of reading, lots of videos that you can actually review on the UDFs. And then there's just the normal links that you can go to see the more details, community, the blog, and actually see the past videos of the user group. And that's my update for this month.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JP. That's really, really interesting. I really like the time series one as well. That for me is, I've had a lot of issues with that in the past, so that looks quite awesome. All right, perfect. Then I think, unless there are any questions for JP, we'll hand over to Sven for the FabCon news.
Right, I'm just going to share my screen quickly and all of that stuff. That's some links. All right, excellent. I feel very privileged to be able to tell you that I was at FabCon. It was an amazing experience. In fact, I was lucky enough to be there last year as well. So last year was in Stockholm, also middle of September. This year was in Vienna, middle of September. They did announce that the next one is in Barcelona at the end of September next year. So slightly different dates, but Barcelona. So start motivating to those that are, yeah. Is there no way to get rid of that transcription thing?
Is it not coming? Is it on the top of your screen at all?
It's not even on my screen. Yeah. I don't know, are the online people seeing there's a banner at the top saying privacy policy and
No, we're not.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I think it's just on our side.
All right. Okay, so anyway, so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about FabCon. There we go. Nice. A few minutes on FabCon, and then I've got more topics. I've got a longer presentation on the main content for today. Okay, so just a few things here. Down is not working. There we go. Down. Right. Okay. A bit of a cheesy photo at the bottom there, but that's Mark and I. That's the main auditorium. Had not filled up by then. It was packed by the end. So we got there super early. In fact, last year I messed it up because I got there early, got busy with emails and phone calls, and then rushed into the keynote, and it was full, and I had to sit in some little room with a video presentation, which is the same as watching it from South Africa. Yeah. So this time around, we were very eager. We were right at the front there. We were doing our thing. So that was nice. And then obviously it's, it really is quite a thing. They've got music and musicians, and they've got fancy presenters and whatever. It really is a great experience. There were just more than I'm stealing thunder from my slides. Okay, I'll get to the stats in a minute. That's a top right picture of a nice sunset. I did a nice run along the Danube and took a picture there. And then as it works out, Giselle, the ballet, was being played at the Vienna Opera House. So Mark and I went to that. That's the Vienna Opera House. And this is not a great picture, but it's one part of the Vienna main conference center. So it was a massive venue, a whole lot of little bicycles and things on the side, but it is enormous. Okay, and so I'd imagine that for them to try and find the right venue is very limited because you've got to have enough space for, in this case, just more than 4,000 people. Okay, so a lot of people. All right, so that's some pictures there. Then, yeah, I'm sorry, I took photos and obviously it cut off the side there. Well, obviously user error, but what I wanted to show here is companies that have more than 1,000 certifications. Accenture, they actually got called out. They have got more than 3,000 certifications. So that's Fabric, the DP600 or 700 or the Power BI PL 300. So that's massive. That's obviously the world record. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been called out. But you can see some other big ones over here as well. Then there's some companies with 500 certifications, and then there are quite a few with 100 certifications. Some of them I've just hidden there only because I wanted to put this slide on there as well. So 375,000 customers using Power BI stroke Fabric. Okay, so that's pretty impressive. 95% of the Fortune 500 are using Fabric. 30 million monthly active users, and then 7 million or more developers. Okay, so that's pretty impressive stuff. Then when you look at usage growth, so that's July 2015 when Power BI was launched. That is November. That's my birthday. Oh, look at that. November 2023 when Fabric went GA. In fact, that's my 50th birthday, so I won't forget that. And then that's when Fabric went GA, and you can see continued enormous growth after that. So I really do think it's taking the world by storm. So that's great. Okay. Then my best part of the whole event is this Ask the Experts area. So in fact, I've got a little bit more stats on the next page. So anyway, just right now, you can just see some photos of it. It's not easy to see, but you see each of these little stand areas. That's one area, and there's about 10 of them. So Data Factory, One Lake, Integration, Purview, Power BI, Embedded, whatever. There's about 10 of these things, maybe even more. And there's someone there permanent, one or more people there permanently on each of those stands for all 3 days of the event, and you can just go and ask them questions. So that I found to be the best part. The rest of this big room was all the other partners and sponsors. It was an enormous hall. This photo doesn't show it off properly. Massive hall. So lots and lots of sponsors there. But yeah, overall amazing story. Just these are the stats I was alluding to earlier on. So my thoughts, there were just more than 4,000 attendees. There were just more than 3,000 last year. So it's a bit bigger this year. Really impressive. Okay, there were more than 200 Microsoft employees there. Either the senior execs, they were there, or celebrities, obviously Guy in the Cube, they were there taking a million photos. Product managers, plenty of those, meaning the guys or gals who look after that specific part. So you've got a Power BI product manager, you've got a real-time intelligence product manager, and there are quite a few others, lots and lots of those. They look after the product. And then really importantly, the developers, meaning the guys who are literally coding the stuff. Okay, they're building that particular piece of fabric. So that's really nice to have them there. And they're also they're either doing presentations or at that Ask the Experts story. So this is what I said is really, really cool, Ask the Experts. And I want to add here that it's important for smaller companies. So, I mean, Sado Analytics is a smallish company. We've only got 15 people. We're part of a bigger group, but still, in Microsoft's eyes, we don't exist. Like, if I try and phone them and ask them for advice or help, they're like, who are you? You know, we don't have time, okay? If you are Accenture or Standard Bank or whatever, then you can talk to them. But so as a result, very often you get a question that you can't ask, you don't know who to ask. And that's what I really enjoyed about Ask the Experts. So that's why it was a big reason for me to go for that, okay? I'll just say that day one was a complete overload. It was the same last year as well. I mean, you've got the keynote. They've got like 30 announcements or more jammed into this space. You link to all of this stuff. There's like so much coming in. You're like, wow, okay. And this is the first session of 3 days, and you think, I'm never going to survive this thing. But then what they do is they have another couple more sessions during the day. They call them core notes. So fabric overall, and then core components. So you can break away into those rooms. And those are also very similar. So all the announcements get fed through those core notes. So same story. You're like, wow, there's just so much. Okay. But then it calms down a bit, because then you have breakaway rooms for each of the areas. I mean, there were about 8 slots per day. Okay. So 3 days, that's 24 slots. And then each slot had 3 or 5 or 7 parallel streams, of which I found I was often torn between 2 or 3 of them. Like I really wanted to see this one and this one and this one, and they're all at the same time slot. So a little bit tricky there. But anyway, that's the point is really, really good speakers, really good content. They were not just, it was not just good content, they were also very good presenters. Okay, so that's really worthwhile. Okay. All right, in terms of the cost, I've just put there 40 to 60,000 all in. Okay, you've got your flights, you've got your hotel. It's about a 5-day trip, because there's 3 days of the conference, or 4 if you buy the extra tickets, the workshop day or whatever. I couldn't afford that. And then there's functions in the evening, which also South Africans can't afford 100 and something euros for a dinner. You just can't do that. So anyway, that's not included in the 40 to 60, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So visas, luckily I didn't have to worry about that. But anyway, I say 40 to 60,000, flights, accommodation, and the actual ticket itself. Okay, accommodation. Mark and I were in a little apartment there in Vienna, not in our fancy hotel. So ours was on the lower side of the 40 to 60, but still it adds up. Okay, it does add up. But I do think it is worth it, and so start motivating for Barcelona next year. Okay, and then I just want to put something at the bottom here, and I realize I'm way over time already on this section, but I want to just share my own personal thoughts here. I've been doing data stuff for a long time now, and even you go to a conference like that, and within the first few minutes, you're like, wow, there's so much that I didn't know and it's new, and you think to yourself, like, when's there enough time to try and learn all of that stuff and absorb it and try it out and whatever. So it can be intense, okay? What we're doing, the data world is complex. It's fast, the pace is changing, there's innovation, there's competition, there's all of that stuff, okay? So it's actually easy to feel like an imposter. You're like, do I belong in this room? Do I know enough to be able to answer these questions, or, whatever, understand what's going on? And the point is, you can be an expert in this one area, and then there's presentations that are completely over my head. So the point is, there's experts in different fields, and that's what I was trying to say with channels. There were lots of, like in data, there's obviously data engineers, and there's data scientists, and there's data analysts, and there's people who specialize in this or that or whatever. So don't get overwhelmed or put off by the fact that seemingly you know very little, because actually I think we all know very little, okay? In the grander scheme of things, it's that big. So just treat it as a journey, okay? And then if there's something that you really enjoy, like if you really enjoy moving data around, be a data engineer and then specialize in that, okay? If you really enjoy creating nice visualizations, then specialize in that. Specialize, otherwise it can get very overwhelming, because you feel like you have to know everything about everything, and it's basically impossible to do that. One last thing there, this imposter thing. I literally happened to read an article this morning from OfficeZen, and they said, how to deal with imposter syndrome. And that is where you feel like you don't belong in the room because you don't know everything. And the answer is, just ask questions, don't be afraid, knowing that the syllabus is just so big, you can't know everything. Okay, so just ask. I think that's just good advice. Okay, so are there any questions about that whole story? That is FabCon. Oh, everyone said I was doing the news, but in fact that's impossible, because there was just so many. There were just so many things. Okay, we got given an A5 book. I wrote 150 something pages of notes. Wow. Okay, and I'm still now going to summarize the shorter version of all those notes. Okay, so there's a lot of content. They also do give away or share or hand out PDFs of the presentations.
Oh, fantastic! That's brilliant.
But there's a lot of it. It is linked to. So they've used what's the right word? DLP, MIP labels, all of that stuff. You have to log in as yourself, who's got a ticket to they've done it that way. But the point is, there's a lot of content, and it just takes a long time to work it all through. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to pause for a second. Are there any questions? Otherwise, we're going to move to the other part of the session, which is the bulk of today. Yeah.
I see that you got the T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I didn't even say that. I'm glad you reminded me. I am wearing the FabCon T-shirt. There it is. I don't know when I'll ever wear it again, other than in these kind of sessions. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I've got that. And I may as well say now, I've got some swag. They did give to the user group leaders, they did give some stickers, some pens. Those were very exciting. And then I had to find space in my suitcase to have 5 pairs of Microsoft socks. So those who are feeling very envious online, that serves you right for not being here in person. Okay. But anyway, so we'll just hand these out to 5 people at the end of the session. Okay. Some very exciting socks.
Socks are always good.
All right, excellent. So that sorts out that presentation. Now we're going on to the next one, which is hiding where? Okay, there it is. Okay. All right. So last month, well, 5 weeks ago, Kaylin did a great presentation on AI. She'd been to the AI and BI Tech Fest and had a whole lot of feedback from that. It was a great presentation. I had a data modeling topic that I was going to share in there, but there was no time. And it was a good thing that there was no time, because actually I packaged it together with something else. This is the part 1 and the part 2 here. And it carries on from what Kaylin spoke about. So that's what we're doing now for the rest of the session. So just almost as a refresher or a reminder, from Kaylin's content last time, one of the things was AI job impact fear. So with AI around, is my job as a data engineer, data analyst, data scientist, whatever, is that at risk? Okay. And the answer there was data modeling is the key. Okay. And that's why it's so good that we're talking about this today. Okay. Right. So people can't compete with the speed of report creation of AI. Yeah, certainly can't. Okay. You also can't compete with advanced search. So I think AI helps a lot when someone knows that there's a report out there, and on page number 7 is a report, something on this, what I'm looking for, but I don't know what file it's in, and I don't know what page it's on, and whatever. So you just ask a question and AI will find it for you. That's really, really cool. Okay. We can't compete with that. I mean, we as in humans. Summarization of reports or automated insights, it takes a long time to summarize a report itself, a page or multiple pages, whereas AI can do it pretty fast. Okay. Productivity boosting. So there's some mundane tasks that AI can do to help, and AI is far faster than we are, so that's good. One of the comments, I think you said, Stanford professor had said, I don't use AI, I work with it. Okay, so that's a good phrase. So use it, embrace AI as your, well, to use Microsoft's term, as your co-pilot, and then you don't feel like it's this awkward thing that's going to take your job. Okay, right. Anyway, so now on to this story. So data modeling, is it better done by AI or by humans? That's what we're going to talk about today. It's a loaded question because genuinely, at this stage, AI can't understand your business like a human can. Okay, so that's where there's definitely big scope for someone who's interested in that area, and it's a certain personality that wants to do data modeling. Okay, it's not easy, but it's a certain personality, and if you have that personality, it's a great area to be in. It can only grow because AI can't work without a proper data model. So literally without a data model, your AI is going to spit out garbage, and people will lose interest in the results of the reports that it's generating because the model underneath it does not allow the AI to generate the summaries or the reports or whatever properly. Okay, and little things like the friendly table and column names, they are useful for end users and also for AI. So, a cryptic system-generated table name or column headings is useless for an end user and equally useless for AI. They're not going to know what to do with it, or AI is not going to know how to build a report from that. Okay, so that's all part of the data modeling portfolio. Okay, right. So let's explore that a little bit more. All right. So firstly, okay. So now there's 2 parts to this. Okay, there's the part that came from FabCon. I got permission from Lauren to do this presentation. And then part 2 is my piece at the end about data modeling. Okay. All right. So Lauren was product manager. Well, in fact, sorry, I've got an alt tab now. I've got to get to at the end there. All right. So Lauren gave me 80-something slides. I've whittled it down to 25, I think. Okay, so yeah. This is pure PowerPoint, okay, because too much content to cover. Plus, what we're talking about now requires a Fabric license, because now Copilot comes with Fabric. In the olden days, just a few months ago, it would only be possible with F64, so big Fabric. Now it can be on even an F2. But in our company, we don't actually have that yet. We're close to it. And so Copilot and this prep stuff for AI does not work on free or trial versions of Fabric. Okay, so even if we had time, I actually couldn't show you any of this actual stuff because we don't have the license for it. Okay, all right, but anyway, let's go through a couple of slides. Just hang in there. I think it's good stuff, so let's do it. All right, so the first part of the presentation is a little bit about Copilot itself. Okay, so not about the data modeling and preparing the data. It's what can Copilot do. Let me just pause. That is Microsoft's AI Copilot. So that's what we're talking about now. Last time, Kaylin was showing was talking about it in general, plus she showed SAP Analytics Cloud, their AI story. Okay. All right, so what can I do with Power BI Copilot today? Well, it can help you write DAX. It can help you create measures. Okay. It can help you create reports. It can help you summarize data, meaning this stuff over here. And it can help you draw insights like build reports and do little commentaries and things like that. So that's Copilot, but it only works if the data model is conducive. Okay. All right. So to optimize for Copilot, you've got to understand how Copilot works and then train the users so that they know how Copilot works. And similarly, you've got to help Copilot understand your business. So you've got to prepare your model so that it knows what to do. And it's a virtuous cycle going round. Okay. So some of the things to help Copilot understand your model better. You enable Q&A. So Q&A has been around a very, very long time, but with the AI version, it's significantly better. And just this little example is saying, sometimes you've got 20, 30, 50 tables in your model, and not all of them are suitable or necessary on a table level and on a column level, and in fact, even on a measure level. So what you can do and should do is go and deactivate things. Now, that's been available in Q&A for a while, but go and deactivate it so it's not going to look in a system-generated table for an answer that no end user would ever want. Okay, it's just clutter. Okay. All right. Best practices for model readiness for AI. So this is what we're going to spend some time on now. Star schema. Okay, so basically just I wouldn't limit it to a star schema. I'm just going to say a proper data model. That is what we're talking about today. Okay.
Specific to modeling. Yes, like
Yes.
stars or snowflake,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah. But a proper data model, not just something somewhere that you put together, whatever. It's not going to work. Okay, not going to work. Natural language friendly model. Okay, so Kaylin was showing the Analytics Cloud stuff and typing in questions. Copilot can do the same, but it needs friendly names to understand how all that stuff works. Descriptions, that's good for the end user and for Copilot. What is this measure actually doing? Okay, now you can use Copilot to help with those descriptions, but basically, margin is this, A minus B, extended amount is quantity times price, it's that kind of story. Okay, all right, then row labels and key columns. You'll see a little bit more about what that means in a few minutes. Summarized by, well, I think that's a big no-no. That's the auto sum or whatever this example is saying. If it's an average, then you've got to change it to average. But I say it's a no-no because if you're doing proper data modeling, you don't rely on any of those things. You create your own measure that is called an explicit measure instead of an implicit measure, and that is better. Okay, so that's why I kind of like, that doesn't belong on this slide. But anyway. Right, okay, so model readiness. Okay, so this is an example. It's a star schema. It's got one fact table in the middle. We'll talk about this in a little bit. Fact table is just the transaction table, the data, all your transactions, all your invoices, all your journals, all your sales things. That's what that is. And then around it, okay, in the star arrangement, to this day, I've never ever done a model that looks like that because I always put the dimensions at the top and the facts at the bottom. But nonetheless, the star schema is there. That works well because there's only one fact table. But anyway, the point is you have your dimensions around it. So your calendar table, your product table, your customer table, and those types of dimension tables. We'll talk more about that. But if you have a proper model, AI is going to be a good thing for you. Okay. Okay, model readiness, natural language, friendly table names and field measures, we've talked about that. Descriptions, we've talked about that. So it's done in the model view thing there, okay, and then specifically here on the properties section, okay. Synonyms, okay, so you guys in your company, you might have special ways of describing certain things. Revenue, is that the same as sales? Is that the same as turnover? Okay. And those are just three very generic examples. You could have something very specific in your company. I don't know, net contribution or whatever, and you've got to describe what that thing is so that Copilot knows what to do. Okay. Okay, right. So there were multiple things that they were involved with model readiness, and the two on the far right, I said we're going to get to them. Here they are: model readiness, update, row labels. Okay, so it is quite hard to see, but you tell Copilot which column to use, and in this example, it's customers. So you've got customer ID, then you've got first name and last name, and age and country. Now, if you'd stop there, would get a report like this, which is first name, first name, first name, first name, and it would add up Joe's age, Fred's age and Fred's age. It would add 48 plus 6, okay? Because it's thinking, it doesn't know any better. It sees first name, says, okay, I'm going to put that on the graph for them, and it's going to put the ages, and it's going to, oh, I'm seeing Fred, and what does it do? It aggregates it, so it's going to be 48 plus 6, and that's not the right answer. So what you do is you have to have a column that says the preferred mode of address, meaning full name, and then you tell Copilot, that's what I want you to use. Okay, so if you do that, then instead of getting this one, which was it Fred appears there. Yeah, Fred appears there. Oh, I can't remember who it was. Anyway, point is, this one is aggregating on first name, whereas this one is treating them as separate people, because the first name surname combination makes Fred into two different people. Fred Jones and Fred Smith, two different people. Okay, so that's what that is all about. Okay, and in a similar way, key columns. So in a similar way, what you're really doing is you're saying, actually, even if you've got two Fred Bloggses, and that's quite possible, okay, so then you would go and the first problem I just mentioned a few minutes ago is still not solved with this column. In actual fact, it's better solved with a customer ID because that is unique for each customer. And so that way, on the next slide, you will have bad on the left, good on the right. Okay.
So you tell Copilot what's important then?
Yes,
So,
exactly that.
So you don't,
the rows
you don't kind of leave it up to Copilot. You tell it that.
That's exactly it. If you leave it up to Copilot, it's going to make certain assumptions, and sometimes the assumptions are correct, and other times they're wrong. It's going to use first name, and then we're going to have Joe plus Joe plus Joe, and that's going to be bad.
But doesn't it feel counterintuitive at first, like in the first instance when you work on this, because it's quite a bit of work in order to be more implicit and descriptive in your data.
Yeah.
Right? I guess if you choose the reports that you want to work on, it makes things a lot easier in the long run, especially for a wide organization.
Yeah. That is your day job. Genuinely, that is my day job. That is everyone's day job. You've got to actually do all of this stuff. Otherwise, the reporting is not going to be good. And even if it weren't for AI, in my team, I tell my guys all the time, you've got to do that. You've got to do, hide stuff, give proper names, do this, do explicit measures, you've got to do all of that. Otherwise, the end user doesn't know what's going on. Now, sometimes it's a quick analysis and you're not going to fuss about all this stuff. But as soon as you've published it and shared it with some people and they're looking at it this week and next year, you've got to do the effort. Okay, now, of course, there's only so many people in the team and they're not going to hire more and more, but maybe then AI can help with certain things and make it better, but it is essential.
Plus, it's also etiquette.
Yeah.
It just makes things a lot easier for the next developer.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay, cool. Summarized by, so in this case, temperature, you don't want to add temperature. So they're saying there's the little implicit measure symbol, which I call the auto sum. And in this case, you don't want to auto sum, you change it to be average. But I don't think you should do that either. You should disable all those auto sums and create and hide those columns and create your own measure and use those instead. But anyway, if you were to make it average, then instead of adding the temperatures, you will average the temperatures better. All right, model readiness. Okay, that's the same story. Wait, what's this? Tell Copilot. Oh, yeah. Okay, sometimes it's going to try and auto sum year or zip code, postcode. That's not a useful thing, so you turn that off. I often give training and I show one of the create report in Power BI, and I always go, oh my goodness. It's gone and put a visualization and it's added up the years. So it's added 2025 up like 365 times with a massive number, and it says, you know, year total value equals whatever. It's like, that's not right. And this thing would obviously solve it by saying, don't ever try and use year as an aggregation. Yeah. All right, cool. Anyway, there's still more, because that was the first half of the preparation for AI. The second part now is actually, and I should probably show it to you. So we're going to be dealing with all of this stuff, but there's this new button, okay, new from a couple of months ago. That's now what we're talking about in here. It's this part here. You see that? Right. Okay. So anyway, we're going to prepare it so that it's AI ready. Now, this is important because if you're a small company, you might have 5 reports. Okay, and if you're a big company, you might have 1,000 reports. Okay, now Copilot is just eager to go and analyze all of the reports. Okay, now can you imagine? It's fetching stuff from everywhere and just coming up with a whole lot of garbage. Okay, so instead, what you do is you prepare your model, and then you tell Copilot that this model has been prepared, and then it will treat it far more higher up in the ratings and whatever, and everything else will not be as important. So the etiquette part, or whatever, that's important. Okay, right, so that's what that does. So simplify the schema, basically limit the scope. So hide those columns, tell it to ignore certain things, that kind of stuff, just so that it knows it's going to go after those columns, and then it's going to do a good job. Okay, then there's something called verified answers. So if you know that your end users is going to say, can you tell me the sales for, you know, by country, by product? Well, go and build the visual, and it's called a verified answer. And you can build 10 of those or 30 of those or whatever. And those, again, will be more promoted in terms of things. In fact, I don't know if I kept this slide in there, but when when Copilot's trying to give you an answer, it's first going to go and look, is there a verified answer? Okay. I'm just hesitating whether the slide is later on, but anyway, if it is later on, we'll skip it. But it's first going to see if there's a verified answer. Secondly, if there isn't one, then it's going to look, is there a report built on that topic already? Okay. If there isn't one, then it's going to try and build one for you. Then it's first going to look, is there a measure that I can use? And if there isn't one, then it will write a DAX measure for it. So it can do a lot of stuff, okay? But to be honest, I wouldn't actually want Copilot to be writing DAX and all that sort of stuff. Rather, as your day job, go and create the verified answers and limit the things that it shouldn't get involved in, and that's then going to be a far better result. Okay. All right, AI instructions. Provide business context and help. Okay, we'll get to that a bit later. I can't remember exactly. Okay, all right, so anyway, that's the schema thing. We talked about it, and what you can't see in the little picture there is include this, exclude, ignore, include. It's that kind of story. Okay. All right, verified answers, we talked about that. Okay, so some tips for verified answers. Use exact and semantic triggers, 5 to 7 realistic phrases each. Okay, so you're trying to train Copilot to know what kind of questions are being asked in different ways, because every human is going to write the question in a different way. So you're trying to preempt that. Okay. Word order, filters, synonyms, that kind of story. Okay. Choose only support visuals and models. Okay. Right, fine. Ensure fields and filters are visible. Figure filters, no answer persistence. Okay, so no more stuff. By the way, just as Kaylin said in the beginning, whenever we do presentations in our user group, we always now, thanks to Tyrone's request last year in November, we started our GitHub story. So go in there. The link is at the beginning. I don't know if we'll show it at the end, but go there, even mark it and say follow, so that when we put it there next week, you'll know that it's there. And go and get this 27-page thing will be there, plus the other pieces will be there. So yeah, it's all there for you guys. Okay, some grounding instructions. Those who are dealing with AI know more about grounding and where it must look for the data. And there's some examples here. Sure. When I read this, I'm like, whew, okay. So you're giving it some rules, like If we're dealing with houses, luxury is the price is greater than £1 million. So you really are teaching Copilot a lot about what your users are going to consider luxury house or whatever. Now that's in that business, and something similar in your business. You might think, oh, we don't care about a customer unless they do X number of turnover. Well, then you're going to put it in there and you're going to say, this is what we consider to be big or small. Okay. So that's what that's about. So anyway, that is what, what some of this stuff is, groupings, bullet lists. Okay, a whole lot of stuff here. Okay, but important. Anyway.
Are you prepping Copilot to be used by your end users?
Yes.
So the end users are going to use Copilot too?
Yes.
Okay, so you like prepping Copilot too? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I should have said that.
Sorry,
Yeah. But that is exactly what is happening. I'm glad there are more people coming, but now it means the people who got here first, the odds of getting these wonderful socks reducing. But anyway, the prized possessions. Okay, so we talked about this. The model that is marked, ready and prepared, it's going to be far higher on the list. So if you say, can you tell me the sales by country, by year, it's going to look at all sorts of reports, and it's going to put the top one there for you. The one that's been prepared with a verified answer, all that sort of stuff. That's going to be here at the top. Okay, good. All right, and that I think is actually the last slide. Okay, so there we go. We've done that part. So we're going to go to part 2 now. So just so remember what we were talking about. This is now, the next part is all about the actual data modeling. Okay, now that can be a presentation on its own. In actual fact, if you're doing training on it, it can be a whole day's training or more. Okay, so we're not trying to do all of that right now. Okay, I'm just going to try and give you a flavor or a bit of a. Okay, right. So that was where we shot off to Lauren's presentation. Now we're on to my presentation. So key concepts for data modeling in Power BI. Okay, so I've watered it down because we don't have that much time. All we're going to do is talk about facts, dimensions, and relationships. So literally, it's quite basic data modeling, but it's the key concepts. Okay. Just so that you know, those who've been attending our events regularly this year, Vusi did DAX query view back in February. Okay. Sven did simplicity and complexity of DAX in March. So that was DAX formula stuff. Okay. We dealt with context and a few other things. We touched on data modeling, but we didn't do enough of it. Then in June, I did visual calculations, which is a new way of doing things. It's simpler and it's good in certain situations, this and that. Then Daryl did star schema data modeling in July. He prepared a whole story there. It was really very topical and relevant. So that was also data modeling, okay? And then today, data modeling key concepts. So if you were not here and you're curious about it, there is our YouTube channel, which no one's going to write that down, but just search BIUG-SA and you'll find us. Okay. All right, cool. So must I stay on there for a second? Are you guys fine? Yeah? Okay, right. Okay, so now let's start with, do you always need a proper data model? Okay. And the answer is most of the time, but not always. Okay, so I've just said here, sometimes you get data in what is called a flat file. So there's an example of it, just in terms of why they're colored in these ways. The 4 columns that are in blue, if you were doing an efficient data model, that is what you would have in your sales table only.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. There is a question. Johan, is it something specific, or would you like to wait till the end of the session?
It's got to do about data modeling, but I can wait until the end of the session. Maybe this is a sort of a left of center kind of a question. So maybe let's wait until the end.
Okay, perfect. Well, just make sure, please keep your hand. Yeah, you can lower it, and then I'll just call on you at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the blue is what should be in your efficient data model for your sales table. Okay, it's got your invoice date, your customer ID, your item ID, and the quantity. That's it. Okay. You say, well, that's not very exciting report. Well, if you're using dimensions properly, then all of the information about your customers and your products and the years and the months and the quarters, those are all going to be in dimension tables, okay? But in this example, this is a flat file, so all of the information is in one file. It certainly makes the analysis process much quicker and easier. I always tell my students, if you have a quick analysis, a flat file is fine, no problem. But as soon as you want to use that thing regularly, move away from the flat file, split it into facts and dimensions, do all of that. It's laborious, it's time consuming, but it's worth it if lots of people are using it regularly. Okay. But for a quick analysis, like, is this data helpful? Okay. You don't want to go and set up a calendar and a this and a that and whatever for that. It's an overkill. Just put it, even if you manipulate it in SQL or Excel to get it like that, and then go and analyze it. And then if it is helpful, then go and do the right stuff. Okay. I put in purple the amount column. That is also useful in a sales table, but you can get to it from the quantity times the price. The price is in another table, so you didn't actually need amount in there. And if you've got a very, very large sales table with millions and millions and millions of rows, and there's things called cardinality and this and that, whatever, you sometimes even need to eliminate your amount column to make your model run properly. But if it's a small model, which is what I've written here, small data set, don't even worry, put the amount column in, it's so much easier, and off you go, okay? But the most important thing out of all of this is that you do have to do a data model if you've got more than one fact table. So if you only have one fact table, then most likely you can just have a simple model. Except if it's millions and millions of rows, it might be slow, and then you do a dimension on items and a dimension on customers, and the performance will radically improve. Okay. All right. So that is, do I always need a data model? Okay. So I've got a simple example quickly now. We'll cross over about movie sales, where as a simple data model, it doesn't have a calendar, doesn't need one. Okay. And then out of about, I don't know, 30 reports that I do, one of them has the bidirectionals, maybe even less, 1 out of 50. Okay, so I hardly ever use bidirectionals, but this is a good example of where it is necessary. So let me show you what that's about. It's about cross-filtering from a particular type of table. So I always like showing this off because it's a fun topic, movies. There it is. Okay, right, so this is coming off a website called Movie Mojo. I've got the top 2,000 movies based on box office revenue in dollars to try and determine which is the biggest movie and underneath that. So, by the way, have any of you heard of number 5? It came out this year. It's called Neza number 2. I'm like, where did that come from? But it's 5th out of all time. So I'm like, that is quite amazing. Okay. So I'm just saying it maybe is in China, and all 1.5 billion of the Chinese have gone to see that movie because, like, seriously.
Including my boyfriend. I saw it on his library and I clicked. I was like, what is this?
So, okay, all right. Here we go.
Let's go and watch it.
Seriously. All right, so that's a 2025 movie in the top 10, in the top 5. Like, wow. Okay. All right, so look, if we had more time, we'd look at all the pages. But the whole reason for that bi-directional thing is on a movie, okay, you could have one or more directors, okay? In a movie, you could have one or more actors, typically more than one, okay? In a movie, you can have more than one genre. It could be horror and comedy, probably unlikely, but it could be romantic and comedy, okay? So multiple genres. So as a result, if you wanted to click on Steven Spielberg and see which movies Steven Spielberg directed, depending on how your model is configured, that might be super easy, but in this case, it's not, because I've got more than one director potentially for each movie. So we're starting to get to many to one and all sorts of stuff, okay? So in that case, I have gone with a bi-directional, okay? Like I said, out of 50 reports, I probably do this once. Okay, so it is a very, very rare thing. But whenever I do training, I say to people, wherever possible, please turn those things off. Okay, because it creates ambiguity in your model. and somehow Power BI can get itself confused, okay? Although Power BI is its own worst enemy because sometimes it'll create that for you automatically, okay? Typically from a one-to-one model, in fact, only on a one-to-one. Anyway, don't even worry about that. We don't have time. We definitely don't have time to cover all that. Fine. So anyway, the point is bidirectionals, try and avoid them, really. But every now and again, there's a scenario where you need it. I will just add, sometimes you think you need it. But if you just scratch your head a little bit longer and you come up with a better data model, you actually don't need it. Okay.
Quick question, rather query. Could you please explain how the one-to-many relationship between titles and distributors is bidirectional? I'm trying to understand you, but I'm just not.
Okay, that's no problem. Yeah, let's do it. So here are all the sales transactions, the movie sales transactions, okay? And it's linked to a titles dimension. So I've got one row for every movie in my analysis. So I've got 2,000 rows in this titles table. Now, if I wanted to see exactly this scenario, I wanted to see Steven Spielberg, which movies did he direct? Okay, so Steven Spielberg is in the directors table, and I've got a long list of directors, okay, and then they will appear more than once if they've directed more than one movie. So you have more than one director on one movie, and you have more than one movie per director. So can you see how you've got multiple scenarios there? That's this story. Same thing with genre, same thing with crew.
So with the distributors, if you jump back to your report there, Sven, I think that's quite a nice example of knowing your data, right? Because your distributor here is Universal Pictures or Paramount Pictures, right? There could be a use case where somewhere along the line, Paramount and Universal came together and made a movie.
Yeah.
It's unlikely, but if you know your data well, then you could say, okay, we need that bidirectional relationship because there is a chance that Universal and Paramount combined their efforts and built a movie. But most likely that hasn't happened, and then you don't need one.
Yeah.
So that's a nice example
Exactly.
of understanding your data.
All right, but anyway, just out of interest, James Cameron is in second, Steven Spielberg is in first. It's got a lot of stuff on here, but actually, so this rank is of the list that is shown here. So I actually had a different rank measure that is still preserves the overall rank because Steven's not number one. I think James Cameron with Avatar is number one. Yeah. So Avatar is still one overall. Okay. Anyway, right, we're running out of time. So the point is there a question?
I was just going to ask before you move forward.
Yeah, then I must go.
Just to click on the different sheet just to see sort of the kind of.
Okay, all right. You know what? I have to because it's so much fun. Eh? All right, I tell you what. Just quickly. This year. Okay, so there's Nisa. I don't know where. I don't know.
What's that?
Everyone in China has looked at that. I don't know. Okay. So it's fifth overall, but this year it's first. Okay, and then Lilo and Stitch, Minecraft, a couple of other things. F1, the movie, that's for Kev, no, I tease. Yeah, it's tease, but he's a fanatic, so he says it's not real. It's not real. Yeah, anyway. So anyway, that's this year, but now the one I love the most. Okay, in fact, before I go there, all right, quiz question. Of all the actors and actresses of all 2,000 movies, who do you think is the actor or actress that has appeared in the most of these 2,000 movies? Okay, so that's a mouthful. Who's the most popular actor or actress?
Currently,
Cruise?
Scarlett Johansson.
I was going to go Scarlett. Well, yeah. Cruise?
Zoe Saldana.
Who?
That's Zoe
No.
Saldana.
Oh,
Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio.
okay. Anyone else?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, not bad. Tom Cruise. Okay. Now, I did this about 8 years ago when my youngsters were like, who is Robert De Niro or Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford? They didn't know who these people were. I'm like, come on. Anyway, the point is, so I did this. Okay, now, here's the answer. So my man Tom has done 34 of the top 2,000 movies, of which 16 are in the top 500. That's flippin' impressive, okay? And what's really cool about Power BI with the right data model is I can click on that and there's all the movies that he was in. Top Gun, Maverick. In fact, Mark and I in Vienna watched Maverick The One Night. So it's a brilliant movie. It really is. But the point is, that's his 14th. That's the 14th best overall movie, and that's his #1 movie. And there's a ton of Mission Impossibles. I watched one on the plane on the way home. The point is, with the right model, you can do all this fun stuff. And say Brad Pitt is in second. Dwayne Johnson, that's because of Fast and Furious and all of those things. There's all Furious 7 and Moana and Fast and Furious. They're all there. They're all there. Okay, so who were you talking about?
We saw that.
Okay. Sorry, now I'm clueless. Okay. Zoe. Oh, look there, but it's in there twice. Okay, so now there's some. Don't blame me. This is coming off the web. Okay. The point is, but cleanup is necessary. So I mean, that's a really good one actually.
If we choose both, does that mean they still win?
Well, so that's the whole point. They're splitting up her results, so she could easily be higher up. But anyway, out of curiosity.
He deserves the socks for.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. She's still Mickey Mouse. 8 + 1 is 9. Okay. No, sorry. But anyway. Oh, Avatar, Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, all right, fair enough. 2009, 2022. All right, cool. Okay. All right. Anyway, but that's a couple other things, and anyway, but we're out of time. All right. So just a little bit more on data modeling. This last part shouldn't take very long, but now back to key concepts of data modeling. Okay. So most of the times, in fact, let me go back to PowerPoint first, which is not there. It is there. No, that's the wrong. I'm going to close that just out of my way. I want that one. Okay, fine. So we've done the bidirectionals. We've done, oh yeah, so now we're on this one, the demo of multiple fact tables. So for most of you, this is what we're dealing with in the real world, okay? Multiple fact tables means we've got a sales table, we've got a budget table. Maybe that's all you've got in this particular model. Maybe you've also got purchases, but these are purchasing transactions, budget, by customer, by item, by month, whatever. And sales, okay? So as soon as you have more than one fact table, you absolutely must have dimensions using the relationships. That's the only way to do it. Okay? And normally it's the one side to the many side. You've got one row for every single day in your time frame. If you have 2 of the 1st of January 2025, it won't work. Okay? Same like if you've got 2 of the same item 100, it won't work. Okay? So these dimensions have to have the one side. There's one row for every item, one row for every customer. That is essential. And then typically your transaction tables, you've got many. So you sold to the customer more than once. You've sold more than once per day. You've sold more than one item on a day to a customer, that kind of story. Okay. So as soon as you've got more than one fact table, you must have dimensions. And there's a little bidirectional. It was for training purposes only, not necessary for training purposes only. Okay, so anyway, and the whole reason for that is in this PowerPoint, you'll see there's red is bad, yellow is okay, green is good. All right, so what do I mean? So I just put this together in one of the training sessions. So when you see repeating values, it's hard to see it, but that's 2.2 million, 2.2 million, 2.2 million. Down to the decimals. As soon as you see that, and by the way, that's customer A, B, and C, the sales amount is the same value. Whenever the total value, so there's the total, whenever the total value repeats, that is the sure sign way of knowing that there's a missing relationship. Okay, so in this example, I'm using the customer ID, not from my dimension. I'm using it from one of the fact tables, in this case, the budget, because budget is working correctly, but sales is the full amount, okay? So that tells you, as soon as you see the same number repeating, which happens to be the grand total, that is your sure sign way of knowing there's no relationship, okay? And it is true, there is no relationship between the budget table, which is being used here for the customer ID. There's no relationship between the budget table and the sales table. There's no direct relationship. There is a relationship through the dimensions. Okay, let me show you. This is perfectly acceptable. Sales and budget. There's no line between. That's good. but they are connected through customer table dimension. That's the way to do it. Okay. Then if you drag the wrong thing in, and what I've written here is solution hide columns in your fact table. You should never allow the end user to drag customer ID, there it is, from the budget table into your visual. That's a mistake. So you hide it, and then you right click and you say you turn off view hidden. So then they can't see that stuff. It looks not bulletproof because they can just as easily click that button and it's back again, but it just makes it that much more difficult. And so they won't have this thing, because this is a disaster. Okay? Right. Yellow is okay. That was me cheating with the bi-directional. So we used, where is it? We used the customer ID from the sales table, and because of the bi-directional, it went up and filtered the customer dimension, which went down and filtered the budget table. So that's why the yellow one worked, but it's not best practice. Okay? You don't want to do that. Instead, you want the green one. That's what you want. Okay. And in the last 2 minutes, I'm just going to do this last one, broken relationships. Okay. So, go back. Bad relationships, when the grand total repeats, that's your sure way of knowing there's no relationship. No relationship. Okay? Now, did I do broken? I've labeled them incorrectly. So broken should be Brad and bad should be broken. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, now I'm a different scenario. Okay? Now I'm showing you if you've got a blank on your report. Okay? This does happen quite often. Okay? And as a developer for BI reports, you need to, if you see blanks, you need to start fidgety and say, I've got to solve that thing. Okay? Because no one likes a blank on their report, because it means something is not right. Okay? Meaning, if you have a blank on the report, it is either on the left-hand side because you are missing a row in your dimension table. So yes, we had sales, 5,000 rands worth. We actually had a transaction in the sales table for an item that is not in the item dimension table, which is why it's actual sales, but against an unknown item. So if you see a blank, either it's that scenario, so then you've got to go and fix your item table, like you've got to insert a new item, and in an ERP system, it's not going to allow you to sell something to an item that doesn't exist, but in a spreadsheet, you can do that, and you can have a missing item, and then you've got blanks all over the place, well, and they'll combine all the blank sales into one big number. You don't want that. So when you see blanks, you got to react. So either you are missing something in your dimension table, you're missing item 999, I think what the example was. Okay, then you've got to fix your item table, or on the right-hand side, okay, if you see a blank, in this case, there's the blank, it happens to be the grand total. What it's saying is you've got a bad relationship. Okay, all right, this is misleading, Control X, bad. Okay, right. Anyway, the bad relationship is here, there. When we were doing the relationship, okay, and this user interface is quite nice because you're going to see, is this ever, I100, is it ever going to find a match in this column over here? No, that's because on purpose I dragged the wrong one on the relationship. In this user interface, you can see obviously it's never going to match, and actually it should have been this column. As soon as I've got the columns that are compatible, happy days, your report will look good. But right now, red is never going to find itself in I100. As a result, it's all sitting here. So there's two reasons why you might have this blank thing here. One is there's no relationship, and the other one, it's an incompatible relationship. All right, but that is it. We are out of time, and that was just the key concepts of it. So we can, those online, you're welcome to stay on. Those in-house, we're going to stay on as long as you want to. But I just need to mention, I'm going to give out the prizes, and I need two things. Oh, yes, there's an announcement. Most of you are finding these events through the Meetup site, okay? But some of you are on the Microsoft Community Platform. It's the one that I always write the thing on. Hardly anyone is there. Okay, well, it's actually not too bad. there's like 150, but on the meetup there's like 2,000. Okay, but anyway, the point is that Microsoft community, as of yesterday, is stopping event publication and communicating to people. Okay, all that community, all that site is going to be there for is to help people find a community in Johannesburg or Cape Town or Vienna. Okay, so if you're on the web and you search whatever, that website's going to find you and tell you where to go to, because in there we've said Johannesburg is the meetup. Okay, so if you are not part of the meetup, the BIUG-SA meetup, then you must do something. You've got to sign up to meetup, and then you'll know about our events. If you're already on meetup, no issue. Keep going as usual. Okay. All right.
Sen, just before we close out,
Yeah.
I know Johan, you had a question. If you'd like to ask that now quickly, if everybody's happy with that, cool. Shoot.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry, I see my picture or my video isn't that there's something wrong there. Okay, but actually, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. All right. So, just a question. Actually, I'm this is the first time in this meeting, and I'm a data architect modeler. I just want to find out. You've now been talking about actually having the model in Power BI. And creating it actually, what if you've got an enterprise data model in another tool, say, for instance, something like Irwin? Can you actually import it?
Imported what, the model into Power BI? Or...
Yeah, yes. Actually, the model into Power BI so that you can go on and all the metadata and things, because that's one of the things that's also useful for Copilot is to have all that metadata. Is there a way to actually import that?
I highly doubt it. It would normally be the other way around, meaning Power BI or the tabular model that's inside of Power BI, that is world-leading modeling technology. So a couple of years ago, they opened it up, okay, for enterprises so that you can actually use Tableau to build visuals on top of a Power BI data model, okay, because it is so prevalent and so world-class and whatever. So genuinely, I'm not aware of another tool that is better at modeling than Power BI's tabular editing is. So, Johan, I would highly doubt that you could import it into Power BI.
I'm actually or actually a lot of actually big enterprises would have an actual enterprise actually model be at the actual data warehouse, which already has with a modeling tool actually has the facts and actually DIMs and conform dimensions, all those things already modeled. So
Yes,
that's just actually hence my question.
No,
Okay,
that's different because then you can use Power BI to connect to that model. I was answering whether you can import that model, take it out of there and put it into Power BI. But if you want to connect to it and visualize on it, then there are connectors, for data.
All right. Actually, you've now answered my question. Okay. So there is a connector which will look at the database and then actually pull the model from that. Is that what you're actually saying?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
There's like analysis services and things like that.
Okay.
Multidimensional, and all of the facts and DIMs will render in the
that's answered. Thanks very much. But then I just come to my other question then about all the metadata around it, which is quite useful because that's what Copilot would have, but that it doesn't seem to, you couldn't that you've got to put in manually yourself, seemed to me.
Yeah.
Or actually, is there connectors? Maybe you would use your data governance tool like Adlan or like something like that to pull that in. Like and as I'm now thinking data architect type of.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's Copilot is evolving, and there's still certain things in the Microsoft ecosystem that they haven't enabled yet. So into external tools and applications, I don't think they're going to be there for quite some time. Yeah.
Okay.
Johan,
All right.
I also have seen various different methods for pulling metadata in. So it depends on how that is actually stored. In some instances, it can actually be stored within a data warehouse, but it could also just be stored in like a flat file somewhere. It could be stored in a SQL database. So there's many different ways that you could maybe, if it's not perfect for your use case, you could potentially look at pulling that data into something that Power BI can read from and then pull it in that way.
Okay, all right, that's cool. So yes, okay, so there is actually still a lot of work around it. Actually, things don't just fall in place. Okay, thank you very much.
And as you were asking your question, I saw on the screen, Michael had a thing there. Michael, I can't see now if you put the link in, but I'm glad you reminded me. There were two things at the end. It was the swag and the two links. The one link was Meetup, which we've spoken about. The other one is Michael's event, the Data Saturday, SQL Saturday Data Community event. That is Saturday, the 18th of October. It's 2 weeks' time, and I've just put the link in there. Michael's getting very fancy. You have to go onto Quicket to book a ticket, but it's free. So don't let that put you off. So go onto Quicket with that link, and then get a free ticket so that you can be there on the 18th. There are many presenters there. It's a really good event. Yeah.
Well, great then. Thank you so much, Sven, and thank you, JP, as well, for your BI news at the beginning. I know we're a little bit over time, but thank you everybody for joining on our different scheduled Thursday afternoon. Like we mentioned, we are going to have another event this October. So we're going back to our normal schedule. So 30th of October will be the next event. It will be online, so not hybrid. So please don't arrive at the office. You might not have anyone to greet you. But thank you, everybody. We hope it was beneficial. We have also posted in the chat the Meetup link that Sven mentioned. So if you'd like to join Meetup, in order to see the news and the emails for the next events, please do so. I've also added the feedback link there as well. So if you are wanting to get feedback or you want to present, please navigate to that. We'd be really interested to hear from you. We are trying to improve every single time. But that being said, thank you everybody. For those in office, there is pizza outside. So please come join us for a cool drink and some pizza. And for everyone online, thanks so much and have a wonderful rest of your week. Cool. Cheers, everybody.
All right, so now the difficult thing. So
Can I just say something really quickly?
Yes.
There's a fantastic site